Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing good today. I wanted to show you guys my custom shovel head. I wanted to do a bit of a walk around because I get a ton of questions about this thing anytime I'm out with it and in my video comments. So today I figured it would be a good day to do a bit of a walk around video because my shovel head will be coming apart right away, and I wanted to show you guys some of these parts and stuff while the bike was still together. So that is what we're going to do in today's video. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. Let's get into it. I don't want to do too much talking, guys. I just kind of want to get into the walk around of this bike, but I'll give you guys a little bit of a quick backstory about how I got the motorcycle. When I was 16 years old, this bike came up as a basket case project. The price on it was like unbeatable, and being 16 years old and not having any expenses really of my own, but having a full-time job, I had quite a bit of money saved up for someone that age. So this bike came up, and it came up for a really good deal because somebody at the time needed money. My dad heard about the deal and he knew that I had the money for it. He thought it would be a good investment for me at the time. So he promised me that if I bought it, he would help me build it and we would be able to flip it and I'd be able to get my money back plus some. So I spent all of my savings on the bike and it kind of just sat in the garage in pieces for a few years until I had enough money to fund the build. Fast forward until I was about 22 and I ended up in a car accident, which unfortunately has given me permanent neck injuries, but it did also fund my build when I got paid out from the insurance company. So I guess that was like the silver lining around that cloud. Once I had the money, it took about 2 years to go from starting to collect parts and doing the fabricating and stuff like that till the bike was actually riding and on the road. Normally my dad could build a motorcycle in like a month or two, but this build being subject to my bank account kind of just made it so that this project drug out for a little while. Not to mention that I was super picky about some of the parts that I wanted and the way I wanted the bike to look. So finding a gas tank, I think it was about a year before I actually found the gas tank that fit my vision. Once it got put on the road in 2018, I basically just had it as my daily rider since then until I got my Dyna on the road a couple years ago, and my Dyna is more of a daily rider now. That's just a little bit of a backstory, and I can do like a more detailed, in-depth video about my history with motorcycles and how I got into riding and all that. If you guys want to see that, mention it in the comments. So I'm going to stop blabbering now and I'm going to show you guys some of these cool custom parts up close. Hey guys, I just wanted to pop on here real quick and remind you all that I have merch. So if you go on my Fourth Wall website, you can actually get shirts, mugs, stickers, and so much more with my logo on it. And my logo is based off of a real photo of me sitting on my shovel head, and it's done up in a Sailor Jerry style tattoo art drawn up by a real tattoo artist, guys. She did a really good job. I love my merch. I plan on ordering myself a hoodie next. Even if you don't buy anything, just go have a peek, guys. I actually really love the way the website turned out, and I hope that you guys will love it too. And with that all being said, guys, let's just get back into the video. I just wanted to show you guys this new pointer my dad made me, so that I don't have to point with my big fat hand in the way. I've got a little bony hand Pretty cool, hey? Okay guys, so one of the big things I always get questions on about my bike is the gas tank. My gas tank is actually something that I envisioned. I did not know what it was gonna come off of, but I knew what I wanted it to look like. And I found this gas tank in an old motorcycle junkyard. As soon as I saw it, I knew it was exactly what I wanted. And a big reason how come I picked it out is because of the rib down the center of the gas tank. But the side profile look of it and just the overall shape was what I had envisioned when I thought of what I wanted my bike to look like with a gas tank on it. I'm not sure exactly the year, but it's off of a 1970s Honda CB125. I really like it on my bike. I know some people really do not like it, but you know what? It's not your bike, so you don't have to like it. But if you do like it, hey, I'm glad you have good taste. Anybody who really knows their Harleys would know that this is not an original Harley front end. This is just a copy of the original, like early style Springer front ends. And you can tell if you look closely at it because it's not quite as beefy as what the stock front ends would have been. I got this at the time for under $1,000 off of a store that I came across on eBay. It's nothing special, nothing fancy. It's just cheap and it looks good. So I was happy with it at the time, and so was my budget. I also actually never get asked about my wheels, but I really like my wheels. There's nothing too special about them. They are Harley rims and hubs, and then the spokes are something I ordered, I believe, from Drake's Specialties, but I spent the extra money and I bought stainless steel spokes. I got my rims powder coated and my hubs also. So the wheels are powder coated with stainless steel spokes. Guys, these things are never gonna rust. The wheels are definitely like gonna last forever. So my bars are something that I also get asked about quite a bit. And these are just like pieces from some old handlebars that my dad had. This top plate that they're actually on, he actually cut it out of steel plate and then he welded the bars onto them. The brass little pieces on there are just for looks, like they don't really serve any purpose other than just looking cool and just kind of tying into the look of the rest of the bike. The lights up here are actually out of an old school bus, and one of them is my neutral light, the other one is my oil pressure light. The one on the left there that's lit up right now, that's actually my neutral light, and then the other one would be my oil pressure light. If you move down to the back of the tank, there's also my little dash here, I call it, which I do want to do a little bit of work to the dash, just kind of make things look like they fit on there a little bit better. My VOES is actually on a switch. I know there's like tons of conflict about whether or not you should have your VOES hooked up or whether you should not. And because of that conflict at the time when I was actually putting my new ignition in, I wasn't sure what to do. So I put it on a toggle switch. You know, you get the best of both worlds then. I can like advance and retard my timing just slightly, just with the flick of a switch. And it definitely helps, especially having kickstart only. If I want the timing to be a little bit retarded, like if I'm kicking the bike when it's already hot, really helps to just have the timing retarded just that tiny little bit. I've also got like my dimmer switch on here. So the dimmer switch is actually just something you'd get out of like an old truck dash for the headlights or for the interior lights, I believe. You can actually still buy them in your parts stores and stuff, so that's pretty cool. The dial itself is off, I think, an old radio. So this fuel filter is actually an old Volkswagen part. I'm so paranoid about this thing getting broken because I don't know if I'd ever be able to replace it. But this is actually out of one of the Volkswagens when they had the gas-powered passenger compartment heaters, which sounds super dangerous to me, but it's pretty cool, guys. I love my fuel filter. It just fits so well with the look of the rest of my bike. My brake reservoirs, which are completely custom made. So the glass from the brake reservoirs is actually from inline fuel filters. You can buy those at any parts store pretty much. And then my dad made the top and bottoms out of some 1/2-inch aluminum. And then he's got them kind of clamped together with some 1/4-inch ready rod. And then he's actually just covered the ready rod with some 1/4-inch inside diameter fuel line. The very top brass fitting. My dad actually like put a little rivet in there, so it's actually vented. It's got a vented cap with a screen in there to keep out any debris or anything like that. My brake master cylinder is actually hidden under my tank here, and with the bike up like this, you can actually see it. And because my gas tank has such a huge tunnel on it because it's off a completely different bike, there was plenty enough room to hide that, plus whatever amount of wiring actually needed to go hidden underneath of there. there. I chose copper lines because I don't like the look of black rubber lines. I wanted everything about my bike to look good. I wanted it to look pretty no matter where you looked. So a lot of guys that have copper lines on their bikes, their copper lines are vibrating around, and they a lot of times will end up cracking over time because the copper work hardens. We're not using the little collar that would typically be in these compression fittings, so we're not squishing the end of the copper line. I tried a few things for making seals for these so that they would seal. I tried O-rings. Eventually I came across this fluorosilicone tubing, and that seems to have been holding up pretty well. So the fluorosilicone does offer a little bit of cushioning at the joints, but the biggest reason how come my copper lines have not work hardened over time is because my dad actually took the time and he made all of these little custom blocks. They're all mounted somewhere solid on the motorcycle or on the frame, and those are actually preventing the kind of typical vibration that you would end up getting on copper lines on a shaky old Harley. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you want to put copper lines on your bike. That's going to just make a huge difference for the longevity of those copper lines. All of these little components my dad made too. So he made my shifter linkage. He actually made that out of like a piece of steel tubing. So he tapped out the tubing and he put the coupler nuts on, and then he put the heim joints on. My dad made my foot controls completely. This little block that's going into the crankcase, that was with the engine when I got it. You can take out this little Allen head bolt, and that actually is where I would see my timing and stuff. But these return lines coming from my heads, I'm actually wanting to reroute them. So I want to eliminate this block altogether, and I want to reroute these lines so that they're actually going into where like the chain oiler return would go on these old shovelheads. That return line for the chain oiler, it always has suction, whereas this hole in the case, it'll be sucking and blowing, which isn't ideal for return oil because you don't want that return oil to be blowing back up into the heads. You want it to be draining down into the case and just getting recirculated through the rest of the system. Also guys, I've got an open primary. People are always making comments about my bike being a death trap because of it. But you know what? I've never died on my bike. My dad has made an adjustable backing plate. You've actually got these 3 Allen head bolts in the back here, and those actually go into slotted holes, and those are slotted just enough that you can actually undo them, and you can slide that all back and forth if you undo the transmission and adjust the belt tension just a little bit. These kickstand wedges are actually something you can buy. So if your bike has been lowered at all, what it does is it actually changes the angle at which your kickstand mounts. So rather than mounting just straight up and down, it mounts at a slight angle. So my kickstand mount is actually something that my dad made. So if you look at it from the back, the 3 mounting holes that mount it to the frame are drilled square with the back side of the wedge, while the 4 holes to mount the kickstand are drilled square with the front side of the wedge, and they're also tapped. So because the back and the front of this are milled at different angles, then where the bolts come through and the nuts go on, those angles also have to be milled accordingly. So the back side has been milled at the 4 kickstand holes parallel with the front to accept the locking nuts for extra strength, and from the front you can see the amount of taper, the milled area for the lock nuts, and their overall thickness. So this setup will prevent any unnecessary load or torque being on the bolts that you would usually get from the kickstand wedges people typically buy. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It's really hard for me to like explain some of that stuff. So I've actually had people in the past ask me about like how my coils are mounted here, because you wouldn't see coils mounted here, but my dad actually wanted to make this side of the bike look kind of industrial. That's kind of why he put the oil pressure gauge here where it is, and then the coils just right underneath of it. So my dad actually made my top motor mount, and he made this bracket that the coils actually mount to. That is actually a custom piece. You can't buy that, guys. That's something you would have to make. So my seat is actually something that my dad and I made together too. I couldn't get any copper plate at the time, but I actually bought a piece of copper pipe, and then we annealed it. We cut it down like the long side down the center of the pipe, and we flattened it out into a piece of plate. We started off just by drilling a hole in it and then cutting out the perimeter with tin snips, and then my dad actually folded it over onto the aluminum seat pan that he also made, and then we used these Chicago screws or Chicago rivets to actually button everything up. It's not as uncomfortable as it looks, guys, but it's not the most comfortable, but it suits the bike and I'm happy with it. So this is just an FX oil bucket that actually came with with the bike that my frame is from. And my dad made these straps, and then we used these buckles from Buckle Guy with some other Chicago rivets. So these are actually holding the bucket down. So you've got two pieces here, one on this side, one on the other side. And the oil bucket's just sitting in this cradle, which my dad also made, and it bolts on at the front and back on either side. So you can just take one side of the cradle out if you wanted to. I've got people asking me like, where the heck's your battery? My battery is actually hidden down underneath the front pivot point on my swing arm. It's pretty tucked away, so it's just sitting in a little box that my dad made. My little ammo can here is actually also something that my dad and I made the mount or the bracket for. So that's just giving me just a tiny bit of storage. So another thing that I also get questioned about all the time, guys, is my rear suspension. They are sitting back about 3 inches on the swing arm than where they typically would sit. My dad sat them back to lower the bike for me, and my front end is actually a 4-under front end. So you can actually see where my dad did the work on the swing arm to move those shocks back a little bit. And then right near the shocks here, you can see I've got my dual axle adjusters. So I've got the original like stock adjusters that are just at the back of the swing arm there, but those are pulling adjusters. And then if you look off to the side, you can actually see I've got pushing adjusters also. I guess that's what they used to do when they were hill climbing Harleys, and that would just keep your axle from like, you know, popping loose while you're climbing a hill, because nobody would want that happening. I've got these little fender struts here just holding up the back of my fender, which my fender does need to come off. It needs to be welded because it's kind of broken. But if you look down onto my swing arm again, you can see my fender is actually mounted right to my swing arm, and it fits nice and tight to the tire. Okay, so now we're gonna come over to like one of my favorite parts about my bike. I love this tail light. I had been trying to find like 2 matching lenses because I had a different idea for a tail light, and I wanted to have like a lens on the back that would be like my red lens, and then I wanted to have like a purple or something lens on the front. But my dad came up with the idea of actually putting a marble in the front instead, which is way cooler. So my dad actually made this out of like a piece of pipe, and then he made this brass collar. He made the bracket that holds it, can actually like swivel and adjust. So my pipes are actually completely custom made also. My dad made these pipes out of a few different sets of pipes actually, and he welded them all together, kind of puzzled them up. My dad's been making his own exhaust for as long as he's been fabricating motorcycles. They definitely look cool, and they definitely fit the look that I was looking for, and I'm very happy with how it's turned out. This is a catch can actually for my crankcase breather. So anybody who knows these old Harleys knows that you always have a little bit of an oil vapor coming out of your crankcase, and sometimes you have a little more than just the vapor, and actually it'll be puking out of there sometimes depending on how long your bike's been parked for. So this is actually just to catch that vapor or whatever might come out of there at the beginning of the season when you first start your bike up after the winter time. And then with the little tap on the bottom, I can just drain that out, and I'm not leaving a big puddle everywhere. Well, I'm still leaving a puddle, but at least my breather's not leaving a puddle everywhere I go. And then right near the crankcase breather here, I've got my jumper line. So I've got one line that goes to the battery here, but then I've got this jumper line, and what that jumper line is for is because anything that you have grounded to your rear of your bike, you're on your fender, like if you have your tail light grounded to your fender or anything grounded to the back of your bike at all, that ground is going to travel through your swing arm bearings. So if you put this jumper line here, your ground will be able to travel through this jumper line rather than going through your swing arm bearings. So then we've also got like this oil block. So my dad also made that, and that's got the in and out for the oil filter. That is something that I'll definitely have to show you guys up close because you can't really see what's going on there with it mounted to the bike. Also, all these other little like mounting points, like where my rear brake master cylinder is mounted, my dad's made those aluminum parts for mounting all of that little stuff. This tag on my swing arm is actually off of an old Model A. My dad actually put that on there, and when I saw it, I realized that I wanted it. My kickstart arm has been straightened, and that was just, first of all, so it's not sticking out like crazy. It was getting in the way of my short legs. It also just gives you that little bit of extra leverage, just being a little bit longer. My air cleaner is also something that my dad and I made together, and this was just a piece of brass plate and then a piece of copper plate. Actually, the copper was left over from the seat. I actually just got this grate from like an air conditioned place in town, and they actually sold me a big chunk of that for like $10, so that was a good deal. wheel. And then we just fitted and shaped the front and back plates of my air cleaner to fit the proper size filter. And we've got it all like screwed together with these bolts and some ready rod and stuff like that in there. I've got this little tiny S&S air cleaner cover up at the top here. And that's actually something one of my dad's friends made for him a long time ago. And my dad put it on my carburetor for me. This little twisty piece of metal between my rocker boxes is actually out of an old like gas hand torch. So that's something that my dad salvaged out of one of those. And instead of just having this straight crossover line, he put that cute little twisty pigtail, I call it, on there. And it definitely suits the look of the rest of the bike. My push rod covers is another thing I always get questioned about. Those are not custom made, but those are like old, like 1990s Arlen Ness. I don't think you can buy them anymore. They were on the engine when I got it. So I'm not sure, guys, I couldn't help you if you wanted to get any of those. You would just have to look on eBay, but that's who makes them. Maybe you'd be able to track some down. I know I've had a few people tell me that they want to get some of their own. My front brake mount. So my dad actually made this brake mount. He had this old performance machine brake sitting around for a long time. This is actually a 1970s performance machine rear brake caliper, and it works just fine, guys, even though it's only 2 pistons. And he made this custom mount to mount it up to my front end here. He actually put like a bushing in here around the axle because this whole mount kind of does slightly move on the axle. And then in behind this mount, there's actually just a little like cover that my dad put on there. Normally that would be open, but that's just covering up my wheel seal. I want to find more of the measuring cups that he made that out of so that I can cover up all my wheel seals the same and just kind of like finish things off a little bit. I think I've pretty much covered, guys, all of like the custom stuff. I hope that you guys enjoyed just taking a closer look at my bike. And if you did enjoy this video, or if you like what you see, or if you just like me, or even if you don't like me but you like my bikes, then like, comment, subscribe, do all those things you guys do. And like always, my lovely YouTube people, I will catch you all on the flip side. Peace. How's the battery level at what battery level? I don't understand this. Did he? Another thing that I also am getting super duper freaking annoyed with. I can't believe I didn't put that in the list. Am I almost done? Angel, you do your job. No. Oh, do. I hope I'm almost done. No, I won't say it. Also computing. It's also great for thinking. Nose picking, nose scratching. Eye poking, if you get in my way. I don't want to be out here anymore. I should have done this in the summertime when my bike was clean and the freaking weather was nice. And I said, hey, that was on that whole time. Dang it. Sometimes I forget I'm recording when I shouldn't be. I mean, no, that sounds terrible. Don't say that, Angel. That is not PG-13. That was an accident. Sometimes I accidentally do that. Okay, let's go. Is it weird when all you can see is my mouth? This is not going in the bloopers. Nobody needs to know how weird I really am. Interesting.